Welcome to the Learning League podcast, where the most influential minds in learning assemble. I'm your host, Cheryl Powell, owner of Learn to Engage. This is the show that challenges the way we think about leadership, learning, and performance in today's fast-moving world. And in this episode, we're diving deep into a topic that has long challenged L&D professionals, measuring real impact. Today's guest is the one and only Kevin M. Yates, known across the globe as the L&D Detective. With a career built on uncovering the truth behind learning outcomes, Kevin brings a unique mix of curiosity, evidence-based thinking, and business savvy to everything he does. His work with global brands like McDonald's, Meta, and Grant Thornton has helped transform how companies view training, not just as a checklist, but as a measurable driver of performance. At the Learning League, we believe in asking the hard questions, and Kevin has made a career of it. In this episode, he shares how he solves learning's greatest measurement mysteries, what it means to build a performance-driven L&D ecosystem, and why his work is as much about people as it is about data. Welcome, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. That was quite an introduction. Thank you very much for that. I'm impressed.
Well, I'm just really excited. I'm a big fan, and I'm just anxious to dive in. So let's start at the beginning. What first brought you into learning and development to begin with?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I got into learning and development as a career as a result of my passion for teaching and learning and education. And so prior to corporate training, learning, and talent development, I actually was working in a public school system. And that is where I really discovered the joy that comes from education and the results of learning, right? And so I just transferred that passion and that joy for that kind of work into corporate training and corporate learning. So to answer your question, Cheryl, my career in training, learning, and talent development actually started in Chicago public school system.
Wow. And how has that role evolved over time?
Wow. So I have served in almost every role that you can serve in training, learning, and talent development. So my career started as a boots on the ground facilitator, day to day, teaching classes at a small community bank on the far south side of Chicago, Illinois. And so that led to a role in instructional design. And the role in instructional design led to a role in learning solutions. And then from that point, I've had roles in onboarding, learning operations, learning administration, leadership development, high performer development, learning technology. And most recently, I have been narrowly focused on measurement and impact analytics. So I think that with the opportunity to serve in those different roles across the organization, that has served me well, particularly as it relates to the measurement work, because I believe I have a good perspective across training, learning, and talent development. And that helps me when I am investigating the impact of training and learning.
Yes. And that, that just led us right into my next question. I've been dying to ask this. So I remember I first heard you speak in, I think it was a Cognota webinar, and somebody said that, the title L&D Detective, and something clicked with me. And I said to myself, that's what I do in the analysis phase. I'm like an investigator, right? So It's so clever and unique. How did you come up with that? Where did it come from?
Yeah, that name, the L&D Detective, I did not think of that on my own. I think it really came from different conversations with different practitioners in the learning and development profession. And, it was just a result of a lot of conversations and analogies that people were making in terms of the kind of work that I do and how that compares to the type of work that investigators do, right? So the difference, though, is that, if we were to use Sherlock Holmes, for example, who is probably the most famous detective there is, Sherlock Holmes investigated murder mysteries. I investigate measurement mysteries. So,
Right.
that's kind of like the comparison.
Yeah. Now, do you own a trench coat? I have to ask. Do you have one of those rings?
I need to make the investment. I need to get a trench coat. I need to get like one of those detective hats.
Yes.
Maybe even a pipe like Sherlock Holmes had.
Yeah.
I need to invest in the whole outfit.
Yeah, you do. That's funny. Well, you go into organizations to help them measure the impact of their learning programs. Where do you start? Like, what's the process?
It always starts with business goals. It never not starts with business goals. It always starts with business goals. And so when I am thinking about investigating the impact of training and learning, what I'm really looking at, Cheryl, so that you have the perspective, what I am looking at is how does training and development as an experience and L&D as a function contribute to business goals in the workplace performance ecosystem? And so when we think about an ecosystem, we know that there are multiple elements, right? And if we think about the workplace performance ecosystem, there are multiple influences that have potential and power to influence the outcome of business goals. So I first think about business performance contributors. And so those are the different people and teams that are coming together to contribute to the business goal, right? And then I think about human performance contributors. And those are the influences that have potential and power to influence how people are executing in their role. So when I think about the business performance contributors, that may be different teams, like the marketing team, the product development team, the quality team. The team will be determined by the business you work in, but that's the example. Right. And so that includes L&D, but it's not limited to L&D. So those people and teams are coming together to achieve a business goal. And then the human performance contributors include things like natural ability, compensation, rewards and recognition, culture. So there are different things that contribute to human performance. So in the ecosystem, we have all these different types of business performance contributors, human performance contributors, including but not limited to training and development as an experience and L&D as a function. So it takes a village to impact workplace performance. L&D cannot do it alone. So when I am investigating the impact of training and learning, essentially what I am investigating is the collective contribution of the village that is helping the business achieve goals.
Wow. So that whole view, I want to say like satellite view, like from above, that whole view contributes to how you put together the metrics. Is that right? So what is going to be the metric?
So for me, the good news is that the signal, the strongest signal, the most credible signal, the most reliable signal for the impact of training and learning is a business performance metric, which means that we don't have to do a lot of chasing after other irrelevant stuff, because we know that what matters most to organizations and businesses are the metrics that they use to measure their success and to measure their business performance. So when we are looking at what we want to impact, what we want to impact is that business performance metric in combination with the other business performance contributors and human performance contributors. So it's not LMS data, it's not survey data. It's a business performance data, and a business performance data could be anything like some of the examples that I shared earlier. It could be a quality metric, it could be a customer service metric, it could be a cycle time metric, a production metric. But what we want to do is take a look at how does training and learning in combination with other contributors influence that metric in a way to either move it or maintain it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it really does when you break it down like that, especially with the ecosystem analogy. A lot of companies, though, have problems, challenges with figuring out the right performance outcome to look at or what metrics to use. How do you help them with that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing relative to one of the points that you made there is around what is it that people need to be doing, right? And how do you use metrics to get a signal for that? So I think that it starts with being very clear about what the people performance expectations are. And when we do that, Cheryl, we have to change our language. So it's not about what we want people to learn, what we want people to know, or what we want people to understand, right? When we talk about performance, we're talking about actions. We're talking about behaviors. We're talking about skills. So when we talk about
affect productivity,
productivity, yeah, as an example, absolutely, absolutely. And so what we want to be very clear about is what does it look like when people are executing and performing in a way that helps them help the business achieve its goals. And if we're achieving goals, the follow-up question is, what metric or business performance metric is the business using to measure its goal, right? So if we have clarity about that goal and we have clarity about performance expectations that are required to achieve that goal, that makes it a lot easier to measure how training and learning is contributing in the workplace performance ecosystem to help the business achieve the goal.
Do you ever have organizations that have multiple goals, like they just can't pinpoint what what their key goal is? I'm not talking about training goals. I'm just talking about their strategic business goals.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you made the difference between a training goal and a business goal, because we often confuse the two of them, right? So I think it's absolutely acceptable and expected that an organization will have more than one goal for the year, right? Or again, it just may depend upon the cadence of how that business plans for itself and their strategic map. So it might be goals for the year, goals for the half year, goals for a 5-year plan. I have worked with several businesses, actually most of the businesses with whom I have worked, they have more than one strategic business goal for the year.
Okay.
Where we can be very strategic is identifying for the goals that exist, which ones have a requirement for people performance where training and learning can contribute to that goal, right? But again, it goes to this idea that it takes a village, right? So when we think about an organization having more than one goal, let's say an organization has 5 goals for the year. We can look at those 5 goals and say, of those 5 goals, which ones have a human performance component to it where training and learning can support whatever that performance expectation is for the people within the organization. So having a multiple, or rather working with a business that has multiple goals is absolutely fine. It's all about determining of those goals, where can training, learning, and talent development play a role?
Yes. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I have your first edition of the L&D Detective Kit, but you have a newer edition that's out now. So what made you decide to revisit and put that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I wrote the first edition of the L&D Detective Kit in October of 2020, right in the midst of the pandemic, actually. And so that is a little over 4 years ago, right? my thinking has evolved significantly since writing the first version. And so the second version of the L&D Detective Kit represents the transformation of my thinking, the evolution of my processes, and it really focuses on what I believe are essentially true truths. I'll put it like that, some truths about what it means to measure the impact of training and learning on workplace performance. So again, it's just an evolution. There are some things that I believed to be true when I wrote the first edition that I now do not believe is true. And I needed to make sure that that was represented in my work, you know, the discovery of new thoughts and ideas. I wanted to share that with the L&D community. And so that is what prompted and inspired me to write the second edition.
So I noticed in the second edition, of course, I have it. I've already been through it.
Okay.
You've got instructional design for performance, and you've got AI assisted instructional design. So you're really honing in on, you know, how you write and develop the learning, and you're mixing in the new technology of AI.
Yeah. Well, it's the instructional design for performance framework, right? And so, yes, I measure impact, but in order for impact to happen, there has to be some intention, and it has to be deliberate. And so that is why I created the instructional design for performance framework. This framework is purposely focused on creating training programs and learning solutions that have potential and power to produce performance as an outcome of the experience, right? So I believe it's important to not only be thinking about how we're going to measure impact, it's important to be thinking about how we're going to make an impact. And we can be most successful when we create and design training and learning experiences that have performance as the intention for outcome, right? So I have the instructional design performance framework. And then also, as you said, Cheryl, in the book, I identify how you can use artificial intelligence to assist you in creating that instructional design for performance framework. And I use the word assist intentionally because I believe that artificial intelligence, AI, is a great resource and a great tool to assist us, not replace us. I believe it helps us and empowers us to work smarter, not harder. And so in the second version of the L&D Detective Kit, I included some prompts for how you can ask your artificial intelligence tool of choice to help you create, design your own instructional design for performance framework.
Yes. Yep, I saw that. That is, I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of folks in the industry that are not adapting. And I always say, you know, if you're in business, you have to learn how to adapt. I'm not saying to use it to write your whole business or your whole training program. That's not, you know, what I mean. The same as you, I believe that it's a great tool for certain components. I myself have used it for characters and situations for branched scenarios. You know, sometimes your brain is like, I can't think of any more names of people.
And that's where artificial intelligence can help us.
Yes, definitely. Well, in your experience, what factors truly influence whether a learning program delivers performance results?
That's a great connect to what we were just talking about, because when you think about, well, for me, let me backtrack. So performance is the North Star for all the work that I do: business performance, human performance. When I am investigating the impact of training and learning, I am in essence investigating how training and learning impacts performance. All right.
Mhm.
So if we know that performance is the end goal, then we know that we have to be creating training programs and learning solutions that have the specificity and the intention for producing certain types of performance outcomes. And
Mhm.
that has to be so intentional. There are different types of methodologies and different types of experiences that are most conducive to creating certain types of outcomes, right? So, for example, if we have a training program and we want to leverage technology, we can use something like a business simulation. And when we're creating that business simulation or that scenario situation, it has to be designed in such a way that it is intended to produce a certain type of performance or a certain type of capability or a certain type of skill as an outcome, right? So it's actually not a very complicated concept or idea. So again, if you want to say create a training programs that help people managers have better conversations with their teams, right?
Right.
You're going to have to create a training or learning solution that has the potential and power to help that manager do a better job at communicating with his or her teams. And so
Right.
there's certain instructional design techniques to do that. And
Right.
that then is where the intention comes in and the specificity comes in. So that's just my really long way, Cheryl, of saying that if we want to produce certain types of performance outcomes, then we have to design to and for those outcomes. Does that make sense?
Mm. It does, and it makes me think about. Um, I always talk about training that changes behaviors, and one of the questions in my analysis sessions with stakeholders, when I ask them what they want the employee to do differently when they're done with this training, and that stumps them. The most common answer I get is, well, I want them to know about the safety rules. So, well, knowing something is not a changed behavior. So that seems to be very difficult for companies to pinpoint.
Yeah, and I have a
Yeah.
very simple solution for that to support those leaders and those managers who don't know how to articulate that, right? And so when
Yes.
someone says to me, I want people to know, or I want people to understand, or I want
Right.
people to,
Understand. That's another
yeah.
one.
So my follow-up question to that is, great, got it. What does it look like real time, day to day, if people are demonstrating that they know, that
Ah,
people understand, that they learn something? What does that look like real
yeah.
time, day to day? If people
Yep.
know something, what does that look like? And then that
What is
helps them shift the perspective for how to answer that question, right? Because then
Yes.
it helps them be able to articulate to say, oh, well, if they know this, then this is what they're doing. And that then
Yes.
becomes a description of the performance expectation.
Yes. I love that. Okay. I'm going to write that down as soon as I'm done. You have spoken at events around the world. What is it like to present your ideas to a global audience?
Wow, that's a great question. And the
Did you
honest
ever
answer,
think you were going to be there?
I did not. I did not. And every opportunity it's an unimaginable, surreal opportunity for me. I'm
Yeah.
just a Chicago South Side kid,
Yeah.
and I am fortunate, as you said, to literally travel the world, different countries,
Yes.
and engage and interact with the global L&D community. It never ceases to amaze me how much we have in common. We may be separated by continent and country and
Yeah.
culture, but
Yeah.
as a community, the L&D
Mhm.
community is struggling with the same things, one of which is measurement. And so
Yes.
while it feels like we are, separated around the globe, there's so much that we have in common. And it's cliche, but it's true that we have more in common as a community than we do in difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, do you speak any other languages? Like, do you go to other countries and speak their language?
I wish I did. I really do wish I spoke another language other than English, but English is the only language I speak.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Um, So, when you're in front of business leaders and you're communicating results, I don't know if you're like me, but I use storytelling sometimes to get, a point across. Is that something you incorporate into your style?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like to take people on a journey, and
Mm,
journeys engage people, right? It's almost like an adventure. You think about those big summer blockbuster movies, particularly ones
yes.
that, have a lot of excitement and, just some really powerful stories. So
Yes.
as human beings, we are drawn into good stories, right? So I think it's important to be a good storyteller, particularly for me when I am telling a story about the workplace performance ecosystem and the collective contribution that is within the workplace
Yeah.
performance ecosystem, and how there's this character, and that character is business goals. And so the movie is then all about how are the people in this village helping the business goal move forward, right? And so then that
Yeah.
becomes a story, because I am telling a story about collective contribution of impact in the workplace performance ecosystem, with the idea that it takes a village. And so that sounds like a good story to me. And so that's the story I'm telling.
Yeah. I love it. It's a great analogy. I always think about my aunt used to always say, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, well,
And
it
that's the
takes,
first thing I thought of, is just
yeah,
everybody coming together to help this single mother with raising her son. So
yeah,
it is a powerful analogy for me.
yeah, yeah. It speaks volumes, and I'm just amazed that um, now that I'm beginning to use that terminology, it's really
Yeah.
sticking in our community, and people are getting this idea of collective contribution, and this idea that
Yes.
it takes a village to impact workplace performance. So I almost wish
Yes.
that I had titled my book, "It Takes a Village to Impact Workplace Performance." And
Right. And then gotten
that would have been
the
pretty
patent
simple.
for it. Like, or you could patent it now.
Yeah,
But
maybe I'm gonna have to.
yeah,
Or maybe that's my
yeah.
second book. Who knows?
Who knows? I think you have a whole lot in store for your future, for
Thank you.
sure, because there's a lot in L&D that we can learn from you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. That's very kind of you to say, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You are absolutely welcome. Before I let you go, I always like to offer guests the chance to speak about any causes or organizations that are close to your heart that you'd like to shed some light on.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, for the opportunity to do that. I do have a 501c3 nonprofit. It's called Meals in the Meantime, and we provide pop-up food pantries in Chicagoland, South suburbs. Our food is free, it's fresh, it's healthy, it's high quality. And we have the belief that food insecurity is a condition and not a condemnation. So our work is focused on changing that condition with grocery bags of food for people who are experiencing food insecurity. And so that's the work that I am most passionate about. I like to say that I show people how to measure impact, and then I'm also making an impact in communities that are underserved and who need help with food. So Meals in the Meantime is very near and dear to my heart. I invite our listeners and our watchers today to go to our website at mealsinthemeantime.org, and you can take a look at the good work we're doing with communities who need help with food. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about that.
That's really wonderful. How long has that been running? How long have
Yep.
you
So
had that?
we had our first pantry in May of 2021. So we're into our 5th year of operating.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you travel to different communities? They don't even have to come to you?
Right. We do pop-up food pantries. So we partner with different agencies, different
Yeah,
townships, villages and mayors. And so we go
yeah,
into those communities and we provide the food there. So we're a mobile pantry.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. It's of great need in all cities, but
Yeah.
we're happy that you're making an impact in Chicago.
Thank you so much.
So this has been one of the most exciting interviews for me. Again, I'm a big fan, almost, I don't want to say groupie, but I'm a big fan. I love your book. I love the L&D Detective, and
Thank you.
this has just been an awesome interview. So if you're interested in any of Kevin's links to the website, his charity, any of that information, it will be in the description area below the video. So thank you, Kevin, for your time today. It's just been an honor.
You. It's been great spending some time with you today, Cheryl.
Yes, absolutely. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Learning League. And until next time, bye.